I'm gonna make this easy for you and your kids, okay? I'm a relatively new dad, okay? I've got a 2-year-old son, and I think about this stuff all the time. What do I wanna have laying around the house for my kid to munch on? So I figured if I'm thinking this, then other parents are definitely thinking this. So these are gonna be 8 simple things that you can throw in your kid's lunch, or you can just have laying around the house, or you can just give them as a snack. Because one of the things that I've found as a parent is you need to have healthy foods laying around for your kid so that you eat those same healthy foods. So the foods that I'm gonna lay out are not only good for kiddo, they're good for you. And then I'm gonna go kind of rapid fire and make this quick for you so I don't waste any of your time. I wanna make sure you hit that red subscribe button, then hit that little bell icon so you never miss a beat. New videos almost every single day. Okay, the first food I want you to have laying around for kids, pumpkin seeds. Yeah, believe it or not, kids tend to love pumpkin seeds. Even my kid likes them. I mash them up a little bit, make my own pumpkin seed butter, whatever. Okay, the reason is they taste good, but they're high in zinc, which is very important for kids. It's important for all of us, and we don't really get zinc from a lot of things. You'd have to be eating a ton of shellfish to end up getting enough zinc to really make it sufficient, right? So the nice thing is pumpkin seeds have that zinc. Now, why is zinc important for kids? Mainly because it suppresses a specific inflammatory marker known as nuclear factor kappa B. Now, this has a direct correlation with what are called osteoblasts in the bones. Now, when kids are growing, you don't want any kind of inflammatory compromise on the bones. You want them to grow up to be 9 feet tall, right? So you want to do whatever you can. So the zinc's going to be a good part there. Now, additionally, this is weird, but it has anti-parasitic effects. Now, kids play in lakes, they play in creeks. And yes, they might actually get small amounts of Giardia and parasites. It sounds weird. I'm not suggesting that everyone's kid has worms, but believe it or not, pumpkin seeds have this component that can actually help with that. So that's just kind of a bonus. No worms. All right. Next up is Biltong Jerky. What the heck is Biltong? It's kind of a newer thing in terms of publicity, but it's been around for a while. You see, regular jerky is kind of aggressively dried, has a bunch of different preservatives and stuff added to it, whereas Biltong is soaked in a brine of just salt and water, and then it's hung to dry for a couple of weeks. So it has a really nice taste, but the best thing is it doesn't have a bunch of other garbage in it. And obviously, kids are gonna like it. It's not quite as tough as you're gonna find traditional jerky. So kids can munch on it and it ends up satiating them and helps them feel good, but they're not getting all the preservatives with it. Okay, the next thing we can talk about, there's a lot of different keto bars, low carb bars in the market. Okay, a lot of them have garbage in them and a lot of them have erythritol in them. But I do think that some of the keto bars that are out there are good choices for kids. Why? Because they're a good substitute to a candy bar. And if you're looking at bar to bar, it's gonna make a lot more sense to go with something that doesn't have a bunch of sugar in it, okay? Now, word to the wise, kids don't tend to process erythritol very well. So some of the keto bars that are out there in the market have erythritol in them. Adults, we can handle it, we get a little bit bloated, but kids tend to get really bloated. And if they're really young, then you run the risk of some colic and really just discomfort there. So try to be careful there, go for ones that don't have that. My personal favorite is going to be the Suzie's Good Fats bars, mainly because they have a high amount of what's called omega-9, okay, which converts over to what's called oleethanolamide. Okay, OEA. This has really powerful effects. Omega-9 gets converted into OEI in the upper intestines, okay? Now what it ends up doing is it starts to increase something known as PPAR. Whole point in this, a whole slew of benefits very similar to olive oil in terms of what it does for satiation and what it does for overall just fatty acid metabolism. I'm not suggesting you get your kids on a diet. I'm suggesting that you get their bodies used to utilizing fats as a fuel source at a young age, so that their bodies are just more optimal and their mitochondria is healthier. So I'm a big fan of Suzie's Good Fats because they don't have sugar alcohols, they have high amounts of omega-9, and honestly, they taste amazing, and I know for a fact that kids like them. So I put a link down below. Otherwise, you can get them at Walmart, you can get them at Whole Foods. They're just about everywhere these days. Okay, next up is have good quality cottage cheese laying around. Okay, cottage cheese is totally underrated. Mainly because most of the cottage cheeses that are out there have a bunch of carrageenan and a bunch of other garbage in them. But if you go for a good, clean quality cottage cheese, you're actually getting good quality proteins, but you're getting, more importantly, good quality dairy fats. There was a study that was published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. Now, it was a long study that took a look at over 2,000 participants over an extended period of time that found that participants that consumed heptadecanoic acid and also transpalmitoleic acid, which are fats that come from dairy, were less likely to develop any kind of cardiovascular issue. So people that consumed good, healthy dairy fat actually had less risk of heart disease. So that's just kind of debunking the whole dairy fat is bad for you. You just want good quality dairy. When it comes to cottage cheese, I'm a big fan of Good Culture cottage cheese just because honestly it's probably the cleanest brand out there, but kids like it, so let them enjoy it. Okay, this next one's gonna sound crazy, But take regular unsweetened baking chocolate and melt it down, and then add some stevia or some monk fruit to it, and then refreeze it or just let it solidify and give that to your kid as a snack. Why give them a Hershey's bar when you can give them your own just self-made dark chocolate that just is sweetened with stevia? Okay, here's the thing. Phenylethylamine is in chocolate. It gives them a sense of well-being. There's nothing wrong with helping your kid feel good in a way that's not through sugar. Now that brings me to the other piece, theobromine. It's a central nervous stimulant, so it acts a little bit like a mild dose of caffeine where it helps them feel good, it helps them get some energy, but it's not like this unhealthy energy that's coming from sugar or caffeine. It's a CNS stimulant versus an adenosine situation. Long story short, is non-addictive qualities, but it ends up still giving them that taste benefit that they want. Okay, the next thing to have laying around is instead of using tortillas, instead of using bread, just have cauliflower crusts laying around. Okay, use whatever brand you really want. I'm always a fan of cauliflower foods because I think they're just clean and awesome. But that way you can make a quesadilla, you can make a sandwich. Just have those things laying around and let your kids take them to school, even if it's just like an extra piece of bread, something like that. Some of them out there are really fluffy and taste really good. So that's just kind of a benefit there. Macadamia nut butter instead of peanut butter is another one. Okay, peanut butter is technically from a legume. Very inflammatory, can be hard on the digestive system, we don't even realize it, can be hard on the overall just body and we don't realize it. Plus, there's a high incidence of allergies with peanuts, so why not just reduce that risk altogether and go with something that's easier to break down? So macadamia nut butter is high in a different kind of oil. We're mainly looking at omega-7s. This is also called palmitoleic acid, FYI, but palmitoleic acid or omega-7 protects the pancreas, protects the beta cells from excess glucose. So kids eat a lot of sugar, and sometimes we can't get around it. But if we have a little bit of macadamia nut butter now and then, it actually helps protect the pancreas a little bit more, so you have less risk of developing any kind of glucose issue, right? Any kind of diabetes, things like that. So I would highly recommend switching your nut butters over to macadamia nut butter or the occasional almond butter, at least over peanut butter. Okay, and the last thing that I want to mention here is kind of a random one, but one that I discovered. Your kids don't have to be keto, right? I mean, a lot of the things that I talk about here are keto, but this is not a keto option that I'm about to explain. There are some cereals out there that are made with chickpea flour. So go for those, okay? There's a brand called Love Grown that I get at Sprouts usually. Okay, this is a great little cereal that's made with chickpeas. So we're talking a glycemic index level of 6, super low GI. But you can give them a little Ziploc bag with the cereal and they feel like they get to munch on some dry cereal, and it's pretty healthy for them. Okay, maybe not something they want to have all the time. There might still be a couple grams of sugar in there, but at least you're getting a really low glycemic index food. That's going to help them feel a little bit better and still get satiated. But don't want to overdo it because chickpea flour can cause some bloating and some digestive upset as well. So anyhow, I wanted to keep this short and sweet, make it simple for you. As always, keep it locked in here on my channel, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you soon.